Well, hello and welcome. My name is Velma. You can connect with me at velmaknowles.com. This is all about your leadership chat. What does that mean? You get to listen in on valuable insights from valuable leaders just like you. I want to encourage you to go ahead and subscribe so that you never miss another episode. And if this is of value to you, please share the nuggets that you're going to take away from all these great leaders. Hey, please give a big welcome to my special guest and your valuable leader, Mike Moss. Hey, Mike, welcome to your leadership chat.
Hi, good day. How are you? I'm really pleased to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to share some time and conversation with you.
Yeah, and like we said before we got on, right? You know, the conversation before the conversation. We both have something nice and warm to have to drink on this show. So if you're listening in, as you're listening in, grab something and have something to drink. Unless you're driving, you know, be careful not to listen and drink at the same time. I mean, drink tea or coffee, anything safe, of course. So Mike, to kick things off on your leadership chat, tell the listeners a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a 33 and a half year association professional. So coming out of school back in the day, I jumped right into a nonprofit with no understanding of what that meant and then never left. So I've had a beautiful journey, one that's actually, just to be honest, I feel quite spoiled because I've been able to do a lot of greater good work with never that intention as a young person, but now as an older person, I really appreciate the journeys that have been provided to me. So I've had the opportunity to serve in 5 different associations, everything from watershed management, river cleanups, all the way through pipeline safety and credentialing, and now currently working with planning in higher education.
Nice, nice. I love how you phrased that when you said, you know, you started into the nonprofit association world, not knowing anything about it. And then, you know, you flash back and say, well, when I look about it, 30 years later, I'm still there.
Yeah.
And you get to appreciate it more around the purpose and the mission of an association or a not-for-profit organization, right? The real reason for their existence. Yeah, I love
Yeah, I
that.
appreciate that because I think as we all get a little more experience under our belt, one of the things that I really do appreciate, as you know, is the value of a purpose-driven organization. And I
Yes,
didn't have that vocabulary or that
right.
understanding when I started my career, but I just knew it felt good, it felt right. My members were amazing, my jobs were cool. One of my first jobs had a boat, it's hard to complain, right? All the things that go with that. But what you realize is you really start to get into the opportunity to lead, whether it's programs or people, is you get to see that secondary, if not tertiary level impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things that I just try and create on a daily basis for myself and my team, because with that impact, the purpose just comes forward and the work gets done.
Wow, I love that purpose versus programs and profit. Those all those big P words, right? But truly living into your potential. Sometimes we don't even know it at the
Mhm.
time, and then our path takes us right to our potential. So I love that. Well, you know that your leadership chat really, I selfishly promote my book, The Valuable Leader, but I do that because I truly believe that everyone is a valuable leader and that there are people in our lives that help us to find that value in ourselves. And so I always like to kick it off and ask for Mike, who would you say, Vilma, is a valuable leader in your life? And you know, that person that made that tremendous impact. I know you're going to say there's not just one, but
Yeah.
but who's that person that comes to mind that you say, if you know, if I thought of anyone, Vilma, it would be this person. And why would you say they're a valuable leader in your life?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've given it a lot of thought, and it really, to your point, it's hard to pick one. But I do think early in my career, I worked for a gentleman by the name of Jack Kozlowski, who, rest in peace, had been retired from the industry that I took a job at.
Mhm.
We were in the chemical industry in Illinois.
Mhm.
And at the time, I was in my late 20s, and he was a really hard boss.
Wow.
And I worked for him for a number of years before he then retired a second time,
Right.
and still continued to mentor me. At the time, we actually wrote letters. It wasn't email yet. But what I came to appreciate as I got another 5 to 10 years into my career was he wasn't a hard boss. He was
Mhm.
an exceptional leader who wouldn't let me get off easy
Yes.
with things that would allow one to slide. And we all need days like that. But for the most
Right.
part, Jack was very focused on developing me as a person who happened to work for him at that association.
Right.
And the farther I got into my career, the more I wanted to replicate what I learned from Jack and that human first approach that most of us take, if not all of us take in a leadership role. But
Right.
being real intentional about that, because the lessons he taught me, while they felt like they were business, they were actually interpersonal and
Mhm.
actually just made me a person by which I would have opportunity. So
Yeah.
he didn't know where my career was going to take me, and God goodness knows I had no idea. But he just knew that with a certain set of experiences, I would probably figure it out. And that's kind of how things shook out. So I have great respect for the way he handled me as a young man.
Yeah.
I was in Chicago. I had a lot of other things on my mind besides work, and yet he kept me focused and he kept me moving forward with career opportunities that I truly believe in the absence of his stewardship, I would never have had the opportunities I even have today.
Wow, Jack sounds like a wonderful individual. I mean, and because I wrote down, I always try to I take notes, one, because it helps me remember, but two, I love those sound bites when they come up. And you said, Jack was all about, and I'm paraphrasing because you said it a lot better than I did. He was about developing the person. And it wasn't like, I'm going to develop you into a leader. It's, I'm going to develop you as the best person that you can be, help you be the best person. And within that, your leadership is going to come out. Great leadership is going to come out from that. So I love that. And the human first approach, keeping people first, because then, the purpose of the organization, the profit, if you're in that world, the performance of the organization, all those great buzzwords, that it's going to follow because it's the people that make the difference.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, because if I may offer, one of the things
yeah, absolutely.
I've been thinking a lot about this. So I'm in the last X% of my career. It's not I can see the window. I just don't know, when I'm going to go.
You're not going to jump out.
I just don't, I can see it, right? So if I think about what that means for opportunities for not just myself, but obviously for those that I work with and serve in our membership,
Right.
is leadership as an outcome as opposed to a starting point, right?
Bingo.
So as we think about how we're developing our staff here at SCUP and some of the other things that we're trying to do with our membership in higher ed, it's really about these things coming together. Oh, then therefore you have leadership. And we all know leadership is not a title,
Right.
but it often is still treated as a hierarchical moment. And so we're trying to figure out, how do we really model that differently?
Right.
And it is everything you said. It's about all the things you do that, oh, by the way, thank you for leading us through this. But it was change management. It was interpersonal skills. It was empathy. It was actually being able to make a hard decision at a hard time.
Mhm.
And even if it didn't go everyone's way, and being able to have those moments where you can make those decisions. That's what we've been thinking a lot about at SCUP, because, we do higher ed planning, and planning generally gets title-driven leadership, but it really requires all-in collective ownership. And in order to do that, we all have to have different levels of leadership skills. So that's what we've been kind of working through. And I know it's probably not legible, but that's basically what's on the whiteboard around the office here, is how are we going to manifest this in people who, some people don't want to be at the highest title, but
Right.
they're not going to have impact and purpose. And how do we help all that come through is something that we're working very hard on.
And I need to, you said so much in there, and I'm jotting down notes on it, but I really need to pause here because I'm at a selfish disadvantage. I kind of know a little bit about your organization, and you refer to it, and I can feel the passion there. But for those that are listening, they may not know. And so I just like to pause and ask, I know it's not one of the questions I gave you, so it's off script, but this is a conversation. So just share a little bit about the organization, why, because you've got a whiteboard behind you, you referenced it, you said some great things here about the empathy and the need for change. And I love these two words, collective ownership. I wrote that down. That is like drop the mic. But share a little bit about the organization and the mission, so that we could kind of springboard everybody that's listening in. I'd love that.
Yeah, thank you. So I work for the Society for College and University Planning, SCUP, and we are a community of practice in support of the integrated planning approach for higher ed. And the way that we approach that, and what we've committed to in our just launched new strategic plan, is that we are a learning-centric organization by design, not by outcome. So we're having to revisit everything that we do in governance, everything we do in volunteerism, and all the things, right? All those moving pieces that we have as nonprofits.
Yeah.
Not because we were failing, but because we aspire to do something different in the change management. We all know higher ed has got some stressors, as all industries do at times, and we're having our moment for sure. We're in the news a lot, and it's not necessarily for the story we want to have students aspire to hear.
Right.
So to make those changes, the integrated planning approach is not the organization's or campus's strategic plan. It's the methodology by which the strategic plan gets implemented and sustained and durable, and all the things that you want to actually drive what we all have a plan for, which is change. So in order to do that, we have to model that. So we all talk about, the whole practice what you preach, right? We all want to do that, but we've actually put it in writing now in a strategic plan that says we're committed to doing that. And that's the hard thing about hard things. They're meaningful. And so we're having to really reimagine ourselves at a time where we weren't under financial stress. We got a great, healthy, supportive membership, and we all want to see higher ed still be here in 2040, 2050. So we got to get to work now.
Yeah. And I know when sometimes when we talk about strategic plans, people are like, oh, pain, but when we talked about it, you and I were like, right on it. And, so go ahead and share, what does your strategic plan look like? I mean, not content wise, but what does it look like? Because I know readers and listeners would want to know.
Yeah, it's super simple. It's one page,
Yeah, I love
right? It's just
it.
super simple. And and that, to be transparent, that took a year
Yes.
because the hard part was having the goal. We have a written goal around clarity through brevity.
Mm,
Get to that salient point, right? That is so hard that, we had 1,000 voices contribute to the plan in terms of aspirations and wishes and what
right.
they want to keep and what they want to jettison and all that, right? So we only have 4,100 members and 1,000 of them gave us an opinion. It was an unbelievably blessed amount of data to work with, right?
That's
But through all
great,
that,
though. I mean,
we had, I'm sorry.
yeah, no, I mean, I pause and we smile about it. 4,100 members and 1,000 of them gave us their opinion. And sometimes we might think, oh, how can you meet the needs
Yeah,
of this such a massive, diverse group, right? But there is that common synergy around the purpose and what you
yes,
stand for, and that alignment there. When you can say we've got 4,100 and we've got 4,100 members and 1,000 of them raised their hand and said, Mike, team, here's my thoughts. I mean, I would say you have a tremendous commitment and engagement. That would be my, I would say, talk about member engagement. They
yeah.
raised their hand. I mean, how much did you pay them for their thoughts?
And I'm
And I'm just, come on. That's where I'm going. It wasn't like it was because of their desire to be a part of moving forward the mission.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. That's fantastic. And thank you for that because it really was a blessing. We've always had decent participation. We had through the roof participation on this plan. And it did speak to the fact that the board, to their great credit, was very open about we're reimagining everything. So we have a new mission statement for the first time in forever. We have a new vision for the first time in forever. And it's not a 180. It is a materially focused version of what we used to do.
Right.
So we used to keep and it's not wrong to do this, to have the barn door as wide open as you can. There's nothing wrong with that. But we
Right.
closed it a little bit and just said in the mission, this is what we do, and this is the vision, and then here's the goals, and let's get to work.
Yeah.
And so part of that is a commitment to being learning centric. It's to modeling what we would expect them to model as planners. So having all those stressors on us, it doesn't change the fact that we're association professionals leading within an association nonprofit.
Right.
So because we're not a campus, and most campuses, our budget is like the office supplies for one unit, right?
Okay.
We're very small compared to those we serve.
Sure.
But the principles scale, and that's what we're trying to model, is that the principles of how integrated planning works, it scales.
Yeah.
So if we start that at the association, have people, when they experience our learning, experience our convening and our networking, they're experiencing integrated planning in action, they can take those experiences back to their campuses and make it work within their culture because it will be different.
Oh, that's awesome. And, it goes full circle to the fact that as a leader, when we talked about Jack and how he focused on developing an individual like you, this type of process of pulling together all those resources, tapping the untapped potential, if you will, of 1,000+ members, all the teams, staff, the board that is members and volunteers, but also board leaders, to get their collective thinking. It goes down to the fact that leadership is the outcome, and the outcome of that is taking an association. And how old is your association again? How many years of existence?
We are 59.
Yeah, it's to me relatively young when you think about associations. I come from an association, right?
Yeah.
And at that time, well over 100 years plus. Who's counting after 100 years? But over 100 years of service with a mission. And you used a powerful word, and that is that the leadership said we need to open up our view and then bring it back in and just kind of reaffirm, if you will, or reframe, are we going in the right direction? Is what we're doing still relevant? And that takes strong leadership to do that.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was a very cool process. And the other part that I want to add is that we do training, obviously, that's what we're here for. So we have a group of practitioners from higher ed. They serve on roles on campuses who actually then, of course, serve as the facilitators for our training.
Right.
We also used those facilitators for our plan. So we had the folks who teach the discipline, do the discipline for us, manage our plan as practitioners, so that we also had that synergy between intent and deliverable, that we say, hey, if it works for you, it should work for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So those synergies also just all the way through the process, and then working extra hard to be transparent, and then challenging ourselves to that. It's always hard. Like every time you run a survey, everybody wants you to communicate more. Cool. So you communicate more. And next year's survey, would you please communicate more?
Right.
It's never enough, and we know that. But we
Right.
kept chasing that transparency or process to make sure everybody knew this was an inside out plan in the sense that the membership to the non-members, and let's get to work.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, and I love hearing your story and the journey that you're on, because I think it's a foundational example for so many of our sisters and brothers in the association world to kind of look at. And it's not an easy process. It's over a year in the making. And I know that there has been many stories that you could, add on to sharing from the lessons learned there, which we may have to do a taping on that one. That would be pretty cool. But let me take us on to, with that frame of mind around leadership and the valuable leader and the lessons you learned from someone like Jack. And today, I know that there are people in your career and in your personal life, so professional and personal life, that are learning from you. And so I'd like to ask you to share with us, how is Mike paying it forward so that you could impact others and they could become valuable leaders, just like what Jack did for you?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So one of the things that's really important to me is it's not in competition for any place that we belong and learn, like ASAE or any of the state associations. So just to level set that. But one of the things that I've been doing for probably about the last 7 years is I go off and form colleague groups, maybe mastermind groups, and mix and match a bunch of people from different networks and people that have been impactful in my life. One of them we just call the Big Thinkers Group, because by goodness, every time I think I have a good idea, I go to this group and I'm like, wow, I didn't think it through, right? And we all serve in nonprofits and we all serve in different industries. So it's a great chance to have some, that whole cross-functional team mentality. Yes. And we just convene differently all the time throughout the year, and sometimes it's a group of 5, sometimes it's a group of 15, sometimes it's in person. Mm-hmm. But we've kind of formed our own little network of support in order to share all of our leadership experiences. And so I think to answer your question specifically, the way I've been able to pay that forward is I've served as the convener. So I keep it, my role is to keep it going. And then just make sure they have a space, and then these people are just magic.
Wow, that's beautiful. And so within those groups, how many individuals, leaders would you say participate? Just curious.
In total, there's probably around 20 of us, just convening differently depending on availability and topic, things like that. But there's about 20 of us that are interacting pretty regularly throughout the year.
Okay, enough to be the Knights of the Round Table. You can play with that one. So what a beautiful way to not only lift other individuals up, but and raise up and tap into leadership, but also to, like you say, leadership is the outcome of what happens. And so the ideas and the things that get put in place because of this think tank, if you will, it's such a strong way to really create more leadership, if you will, in an organization. So that's
thank you. And I would like to offer, because I don't think this, I'm a great aggregator. I'm not an original thinker, so I own that. I read as much stuff everywhere as I can because it's where everything happens, right?
Right.
But one of the things I do want to acknowledge that we do here at SCUP, that I know a lot of the folks watching this and others do as well, but being real intentional about getting out of the way, right? Is that I have some very inspiring younger careered people that work for us, and my best thing I can do as a leader for them is to resource them and get out of the way, because that's what Jack taught me, right? Is Jack wasn't there to answer all my questions. He was there to help me figure out how to put out the occasional fire that I started, or, I'm not unfamiliar with writing an apology note early in my career, but those type of things were really what I learned from Jack too, that I also internally pay forward, which is I'll resource you, get out of your way, and we'll work through it. Right. We'll do it, we'll reflect, and then we'll do it differently, and we'll keep going. And that requires me to have the discipline to also get out of the way.
Yeah, I love that. Get out of the way. Yeah, resource them. So it's not like you're just dumping, but you're resourcing them with what they need, setting them up for success, and then you're getting out of the way so that they can accomplish the success that you. Yeah, I love it. That's beautiful. So what now? My third question is around this. I feel like I'm always drinking from a fire hydrant, and when I talk to you, because I'm like, I could just be a little sponge. You just have so much wealth to offer, and such a deep way of thinking about things. But then you frame it where it's so easy to digest, and I love that side of it. It's I always think that leadership is simple, but it's not easy. You have to be intentional, like you said. But if you had to give one big takeaway that you would say, Velma, if there was one thing that I could give to listeners here on how they can become valuable leaders in their lives, and then share that with others to raise up other leaders, because no one wants to be a follower. People grow up and say, I want to be a leader, not I want to be a follower, sign me up. What would that one big takeaway be from Mike?
Mhm. So something it's hard. I don't need caffeine to get going in the morning, but I do love coffee, right? So when you wake up on 11 and then the coffee puts you to 15, it's hard to stay quiet. And so I think a lot of folks around here in the office might call me a loud leader. But I think the most important thing to the question you ask is let silence be in service. And so that we all talk about deep listening or intentions and all those, and there's all of that is so right and also so hard because the energy of ideation is contagious, right? So when I get in a room with my folks or my volunteers, and my gosh, the ideas are bouncing all over the whiteboards, serving in silence to help then ask that one question that gets it to the next step based on your experiences. That one question that says, "Have you thought about?"
Yeah.
I love it. Can we think about? Comes from that service in silence, which is, I think, I'm only speaking for myself, but I know it can be very hard because the moment feels good, the moment feels right. And then when they're going a little bit to a lot of bit off track, that's when you want to intervene and keep everything focused and on time and on schedule. Sometimes being silent to let that go a little bit
Yeah.
is something that I've learned over, and I would highly recommend we all challenge ourselves with. It doesn't mean you're ignoring it. It doesn't mean you're not gonna let them run off the rails, none of that. But you do need to let them have the experience of what it looks like to recalibrate, what it might be to rethink, to ask for resources that are non-existent and have to bring it back and figure out how to iterate. So all those things I think are born from also just sitting in silence, listening, asking the question, and stepping back again. And for me, at least, that's been very hard because I love the energy of just sitting around with a marker and going for it, right?
Right. The whiteboard shows it.
Yeah, there's like 1,000 linear feet around here with marker on it. But yeah, it's I don't know. I think that's probably obvious, but I also want to acknowledge for me and for some of my colleagues in that group that we meet with, it's hard because you want to keep things moving. Profitability matters.
Yeah.
We all know tax status, not goal. We still have to make money to serve. But
Right.
sometimes you do need to let it within reason, let them drift and let them learn because that's how we got to where we are. We drifted and we learned.
Wow. Drift to learn. Oh my gosh. So many great nuggets to take away there. I'm like running out of space on my paper and turn the page and all, but silence and service. Boom. Yeah. I mean, that in and of itself is so deep. We could go so many places. Yeah. I always think listen first, speak last.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I remind myself of Nelson Mandela, the former president of South Africa, and he, as a little boy, used to go to the tribal meetings of his father, who was a tribal chief. And because people always wondered, how did Nelson Mandela become such a great leader? And he said when he was a little boy, he would go to these tribal, meetings, which his father was the chief, and he noticed that his father would go around the circle and ask, like you said, ask all these questions, and then he would listen. And at the end of hearing everyone's thoughts and leaning into them, that's when, in his silence, then he spoke last. And the takeaway that he gave his son, Nelson, was that you should, listen first and speak last.
Yeah.
And that's
I love
silent
that.
service, that's listening to what others are saying and then serving them based on what you hear their needs are. And your service speaks, right? Actions speak louder than words sometimes. Right?
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that. That's a great, that's just a great example. And I think all of us have read those books and we've heard the stories, but then, energy and, I'm going to own it. I have a huge ego or I wouldn't be able to do what I do, but I have to keep that in check. And wanting to pontificate on experiences that prove either this or that isn't going to help them have that drifting and learning that I was given in my career. So having to keep all that in check is something we have to be. It's that self-regulation, right? That also comes, as you described in that story. There was a lot of self-regulation. Yeah. And I think that's something that we need to be mindful of as we continue to try and develop the next wave of people to run these nonprofits.
Yeah, well, leadership is an inside job. And so it is learning to regulate yourself and to be that, thermostat, not the thermometer, right? The thermostat, right? So that's regulating the word you prompted it, Mike. I didn't have it scripted, but when you said regulate, I'm like, that's the thermostat, not not the thermometer. But yeah, how powerful. And then you said drift to learn. You would usually not think about, because you would think about a boat that lost its anchor and it's just drifting and it's off course and it's going to run into, some kinds of, boulders and rocks or reefs or whatever. And but drift to learn, sometimes you do have to go off course to realize that you're off course.
Yeah.
Because we have so many blinders on sometimes, and so
Yeah, absolutely. The real learning for at least what we're trying to do here at SCUP does come from, we all know you got to fail to learn and improve, do reflect it differently. All those learning centric models, 100%. I can't yell those enough about how wonderful they are.
right,
But at the same time, the comfort for failure is not human centric. That is not something that, like, I came to work today to really blow this conversation with you. It was not on my mind, right?
right.
So I think there's also, we have to provide those change management skills. There's a lot of skills that come from here in that drifting.
Yes.
So from that experience, then as a leader, then how do you capture that without it being a lecture or a performance improvement plan, right?
Yes.
Because you didn't let it drift to the point that it should be a performance improvement plan.
Right.
So I do think there's some awesome moments in there of how you have to really, that's when we're silent and watching and paying attention, because that is where they're going to learn the most.
Yeah.
And then they're going to come back with stuff you've never thought of because they brought a set of experiences when you hired them that you didn't have. So
Yeah.
let that happen, right? So then they can share those moments with you as well.
Wow, well said. I love that. Yeah, I truly believe you got to fail to learn. In fact, failure is the best teacher. But I like to learn from other people's failures, you know. There's always
Yeah, as much as I can, yes.
Yeah, like they always say, I learn from experiences, but other people's experiences are the best for me.
100%. I love that.
Yeah, I love having this chat with you, Mike. You have just been awesome and dropped so many great little nuggets for us and helped us to all become better leaders. At this time, I'd love you to give the listeners a little bit of an opportunity of how they could learn more about Mike and how they could learn more about your association and what you do.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn, through email, any of those opportunities. So it's Michael Moss at Society for College University Planning on LinkedIn, mike.moss@scup.org on email.
Okay.
Love to share experiences and ideas as we talked about. Our website is scup.org, so scup.org. And I would love criticism as much as anything that you observe that we're doing well. I'd love you to come through our materials and say, I don't think I quite understand why this matters, or whatever reflections you have, particularly if you're outside the realm of higher ed. I think one of the things we talked about and alluded to a little bit is that those learning moments aren't always within the industry you serve.
Right.
Sometimes take an intentional moment to go to a book, a website, a lecture, or a conference that has zip to do with what you actually do, and learn from them and how to apply. So I would love to learn from your community as well. So would welcome any of those conversations. And I'm mostly, this has been awesome. It's been a trying year, and it's only like 7 weeks in, but a trying year for all the reasons that we're hopeful for at SCUP, which is we're overwhelmed with response. We're overwhelmed with people wanting to volunteer in new ways, and we're not quite ready for all those new ways. So I complain with peace, because my goodness, be careful what you ask for and embrace it when it shows up, right? So this was a wonderful opportunity to share that. I appreciate that you were willing to listen to our story, and thank you for your grace.
Oh, my pleasure. And I have just been completely blessed since we have been introduced. I got to give a shout out to Amanda Kaiser, who made that introduction for us. She's just a wonderful individual, and it shows that she's connected. And they say surround yourself with the best, and she's done that here. So thank you, Mike, for coming on and giving us your time, and also sharing your wisdom with us. It's been a valuable experience for me, and I know the listeners will say the same. Thank you very much. Hey, thanks so much for watching another episode of Your Leadership Chat. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button here and tap that bell icon so that you never miss another episode. I hope too that you'll give us a thumbs up on the video for a like, and then if you feel led, please share the video with those who need to see it. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Your Leadership Chat. Bye for now.